Today's episode is brought to you by Kind Bar. Kind is deeply committed to crafting food with real, recognizable ingredients, a disruptive notion that sparked the creation of a new healthy snacking category. Kind is unapologetic in their efforts to challenge the status quo, to shift the food industry, and empower their community and our listeners to make better, informed choices about health. Kindness can be a transformative force for good, and that is why we're teaming up with Kind and Podgo to bring our listeners 10% or 15% off for military, teachers, students, first responders, doctors, and nurses. Go to podgo.co/kind. That's podgo.co/kind. Kind Bar, creating a kinder and healthier world. One act, one snack at a time. Who we are, who we were, and who we're destined to become are all reflections of the stories we tell, of gods and devils from tales of the heart to those of fear and foreboding. Stories shape us in the world we live in. Myths, folk tales, and even religious parables all define our cultures and beliefs. In each episode of Faith and Fear, we will dip our toes into the comparative narratives spanning the globe, considering the concepts and archetypes common to us all. Enle, Shalom and Prazir. Hello and peace. It's a pleasure. Thanks for following me down the rabbit hole once again on my journey to better understand the stories and beliefs that shape us. Welcome back, and as always, you've been missed. Fate is like a strange, unpopular restaurant filled with odd little waiters who bring you little things you never ask for and don't always like. Lemony Snicket. Last episode, we discussed new beginnings, change, rebirth, and renewal. This week, I want to more or less use that as a springboard into our next topic, segueing into the idea of fate, destiny, and the concept of free will. Who we are and what we are capable of becoming is determined by our actions and choices or by forces beyond our control. Can we change things if we make the right moves, or is it all set in stone, predetermined before we were ever born? Are we victims, mere pawns, chess pieces on a universal board, or do we actually have agency, some semblance, any power or sway over who we were and will become? Most of us like to believe that we have some level of control over our happiness, and whether or not we are successful in life. We hope we make the right decisions moving forward and take advantage of opportunities whenever they become available, believing we've earned them in some way, shape, or form. We blame ourselves as well as others when things go wrong, them for taking advantage of us or hindering our success, ourselves for allowing them to do so. But what if none of that matters? What if they have no more control over the things they do than we have the things that happen to us? What if we are all simply following the course laid out, with no ability to alter or resist it in any way? This is utter bull, of course, poppycock, nonsense, whose only real purpose serves to relieve us of personal responsibility. Still, the idea of fate, destiny, and predestination have existed in just about every culture and belief system around the world. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines fate as the principle or determining cause by which things in general are believed to come to be as they are, or events to happen as they do. The same dictionary defines destiny as something to which a person or thing is destined, a predetermined course of events often held to be an irresistible power or agency. Simply put, the differences between fate and destiny can be defined as fate being solidified, inflexible, and unable to be influenced or altered, while destiny, on the other hand, can be changed and is affected by the choices we make throughout our life. We can, in effect, not only influence our destiny, but either fulfill it or not. Free will is defined in said dictionary as voluntary choice or decision. It is the freedom for humans to make decisions outside of the prior determination or intervention by divine beings. Free will is our ability to have a say in our lives, for better or worse. It is the freedom to make mistakes, but to also learn and grow from them. Free will gives us the chance to rise or fall all of our own accord. It is an existence built entirely on personal efficacy and responsibility. It is arguably the greatest gift a consciously aware species can possess. But there are those who would much rather give up this gift, to acquiesce such control for impunity from any burden or blame or sense of accountability. To such persons, it is the blessings and tribulations of greater powers that determine the course of their lives. Over the course of human history, there have been a great number of deities from around the globe who rule over matters of fate, destiny, and time itself. Gods and goddesses alike, these figures have been believed to determine the path of heroes, common folk, and even other gods. It was often their will that stood above all others, and those who chose to fight against their fate only discovered that their actions only aided in bringing it about in the long run. The ancient Egyptian god and living embodiment of fate and destiny was known as Shai. Shai, who determined the lifespan of each person's life at birth, was believed to be at a person's side from the day they were born until following their death, they stood before Osiris and received their final judgment. It was Shai who conveyed the events of a person's life, impartially and unbiased. Shai's account within the Hall of Judgment could save or damn a person's soul, regardless of station. Typically considered a male deity, some versions have stated Shai to be female. Also from ancient Egypt, the embodiment of Ka, or life force, the Hemsut were goddesses of fate and destiny, believed to have been born from the primeval waters from which everything was created as the living expression of creative potential. Ikenga is a personal god of time and human potential. A horned deity from the Igbo people of Nigeria, Ikenga governs human endeavor, achievement, success, and the power to achieve victory. Ikenga totems are typically worn by men, activated with prayer and sacrifice, encompassing an individual's personal connection to God, their ancestors, and personal power. The two-faced Ikenga is one of the oldest Igbo symbols, and governing time itself, its one face looks to the previous year while the other looks toward the new. Ori is a Yoruban philosophical concept that is considered a crucial part of our personality, as well as our destiny. It is very much a personal deity. Ori rests in and is represented by a person's head. It determines our character as well as decides our good and bad luck. Ori determines how we act towards others, the world around us, and serves as the primary source of a person's spiritual and social identity. Significant to Hinduism and Buddhism, Mahakala is known as the Great Black One. Considered a protector god who is sometimes also associated with death, Mahakala is a god of time, creation, destruction, and power. Perceived as a manifestation of Lord Shiva in Hinduism, Mahakala has been described as black in color, having as many as 6 arms, 3 eyes, wearing a belt of 8 skulls, and sitting on a throne of 5 corpses. In his hands he holds a trident, both scythe and sword, as well as a drum. Varuna is another Hindu deity and a personification of divine authority. A ruler of the skies, Varuna oversees and maintains cosmic and moral law as chief of the Adityas. Kali is the Hindu goddess of time, death, and destruction, known as she who is death. However, Kali is a far more rounded deity than her appearance might first give off. With her black or blue skin, skirt of human arms, and necklace of human heads, she is also associated with sexuality and motherly love. Kali has become a modern symbol of feminism and female empowerment. The Anunnaki were a group of ancient deities dating back to Sumerian, Akkadian, Assyrian, and Babylonian myths, said to rule over the fates of humankind. Similar to the Anunnaki, the Akkadian goddess of the oath, said to rule over fate and destiny, was known as Mamitu. Manat was a Semitic goddess of fate, fortune, time, death, and destiny in pre-Islamic Arabia. She is considered to be one of the three chief goddesses of Mecca and one of the eldest of the ancient Semitic deities. In the Philippines, the god of universal time was known as Bangun Bangun and was the god of the rainbow, also believed to maintain the movements of the cosmos. Another god of fate in Philippine mythology is the bird god Muhen, whose song could predict misfortune and cause those who heard it to abandon or delay any task they were currently involved in. In the Zoroastrian and ancient Iranian religions, Zurvan was a primordial creator deity believed to be the infinite god of time and space. In Albanian lore, Fatia, depicted as three goddesses, maintained order and law in the universe, overseeing the destinies of humankind. One belief holds that 3 days after a child's birth, the Fati appear riding atop butterflies to decide the child's fate. Similar to the Fati are the Ora, the Zana, and the Mira, all described as three Albanian goddesses who govern human destiny. The Zana are considered fairies in some folklore, believed to bestow life on growing fetuses in the womb, and said to grant gifts of physical beauty or creative talents after birth. However, if crossed, they can also bestow curses. The Baltic goddess of fate associated with the linden tree was called Laima, and it was she who was said to decide the duration and prosperity of a human's life. Every significant aspect, Laima was involved, watching over pregnant women and appearing at childbirth, pronouncing its destiny to arranging the child's marriage, as well as overseeing the wedding. Laima even governed the life of plants and animals as well. Dalia is sometimes considered a variation of Laima, and is a goddess of fate in Lithuanian mythology. Dalia is considered the giver and taker of goods, granting everyone what she considers a proper share at the onset of their life. Interested in how each individual will fare, she may appear as a woman, but also as a dog, lamb, swan, or duck. Considered the most powerful group of female beings in Norse mythology, the Norns were said to both create as well as control fate itself. All beings were subject to their will, gods and humans alike. Unlike the Fati, some stories hold there to be an unknown number of Norns, Norns being born from the races of God, humans, dwarves, as well as elves. But the most common belief recited in the poem Voluspa is that there are in fact only 3 Norns who exist beyond all other races. In this account, the 3 are named Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, past, present, and future respectively. and together they live beneath the cosmic world tree, Yggdrasil, whose branches and roots carry the 9 worlds. The Moirai, commonly referred to simply as the Fates, are also perceived as the 3 goddesses ruling over the lives of humankind in Greek mythology. The Moirai weave the thread of destiny for each mortal at the time of their birth. Clotho the spinner, Lachesis the elater, and Atropis the inflexible are the 3 daughters of Nyx, the primordial personification of night, born of chaos from which all of creation emerged. However, another origin describes the Moirai as the children of Zeus and the Titan Themis, the personification of natural and normal order. I promise not to comment on the irony of Zeus having a child with the personification of moral order. The Roman equivalent of the Moirai were known as the Parcae. They were called Nona, who spun the thread of life, Decima, who measured the thread, and Morta, who cut the thread and chose how a person would die. Ananke, the primordial goddess in Greek mythology who existed as the very personification of necessity and fate, was sometimes also considered to be the actual mother of the Moirai. In this narrative, as the mother of fate, it was only Ananke who could in any way control or alter its course. Husband to Kronos, the personification of time, Ananke was known to carry a spindle and was there when the universe itself began. It was Kronos and Ananke's embrace around the primordial egg which caused it to split and give birth to the earth, heaven, and sea. There are, to say the least, a great deal of ancient deities who have been perceived to govern and rule over fate, destiny, and time itself. This is far from a complete list, but simply a brief sample of how long-lived and far-reaching this concept has persisted throughout the duration of human existence. Admittedly, I like the idea of fate, having a destiny, some purpose, and reason for why we're each here on Earth. But my need to believe that we have a say as to who and what we are supersedes that. I feel that free will is far more important than the idea that we are simply leaves blowing wherever the wind of fate blows us, or pawns of destiny in a cosmic game of chance. Maybe that's just my human arrogance, or I'm simply following the path laid out for me. Who knows? Next week, we get to start a whole new theme, but I'll let you guys guess what that will be. For now, once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Assalamu alaikum and namaste. Peace be with you until we meet again. Thanks for listening to me as I've nerded out about stories and beliefs. Join me next week as I journey down the rabbit hole once again by subscribing and listening wherever podcasts are available. Leave me a comment about what you think. 5-star reviews are always great and help others find the podcast. And lastly, share with someone you think might get something out of these conversations. Who knows? Maybe then we'll be one step closer to glimpsing the true nature of faith and fear. Music brought to you from Pixabay.